Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Impro poet CJ Hooper. Hey, woo! Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Welcome to Impro Poet Presents What If History. We're going to be taking a look today at alternative histories, things that may have happened, things that could have been different. We're going to look at how what we call the butterfly effect may have affected things. So just how things could be different, how things worked out slightly differently. And we're going to break it up. We're going to start from prehistory, and we're going to go all the way through up to the modern day. So we've got little bits to sort of deal with there as well. And I do have some pre-written poems as well to help sort of give you an idea of the sort of thing that we're after, what you can expect, and there we go. So just as a way to break the ice, we are starting in prehistory. Prehistory is a fantastic period. By prehistory, we're going from the Big Bang up to the advent of writing. So it's just a small bit of history. It's just a small bit. But we need to look at the important things. We've got the Big Bang, we've got the Earth cooling, but more importantly, we've got dinosaurs. Everybody loves dinosaurs, right?
Yep.
What's your favourite dinosaur?
A T-Rex.
No, it's the pterodactyl. What's your favourite dinosaur?
Basically only sauropod.
No, it's a pterodactyl. It's a pterodactyl. But well done, I appreciate the effort. What's your favourite dinosaur?
Stegosaurus?
No, it's the pterodactyl. There are going to be clues throughout, okay? Anyway, silliness aside, I frequently get asked this question, so we have an earlier response on this one. What if the dinosaurs had survived? We're all thinking it, we've all pondered this question at some point in our lives. So the meteor, it misses the Earth. Dinosaurs go on to invent the blazing hearth. T-Rex, with its little arms and twigs, make friction. Pterodactyls clack and come up with erudition. Ankylosaurus turns at heel and becomes the dinosaur that invents the wheel. Brontosaurus writes romantic novels. Brontosaurus, anyone? Yeah. Oh. I'll take a groan as a reaction. That's fine. But that's possibly the level we're starting at when it comes to pitching up. So, just very quickly as well, I will be asking you to shout things out on occasion, so give suggestions. Some of you may have noticed that I wear two hearing aids. Without them, I'm actually pretty much completely deaf. So, this does cause problems. An upside is that I never hear any heckling. A downside is I never hear the rapturous applause that you give me. The rapturous applause. I mentioned there will be cues, didn't I? Some of these bits you'll be able to join in on and have fun with, hopefully. Okay, so we're looking at prehistory. We are going to move all the way throughout history, and we don't have a lot of time to do it, it has to be said. So, just quickly before anything else, would anyone like to explore a change to prehistory? What we're looking at is anything up to the start of writing, before the written word. Anything anyone would like to look at all? We've got cavemen. Sorry? Neanderthals. And how would you change things here?
Oh, I've got no idea.
What if Noah's Ark crashed?
What if Noah's Ark crashed?
Oh, right.
Okay, yeah, fantastic, yeah. Okay, yeah. Noah's Ark, an ambitious task. The whole thing was actually built of a large brewing cask. Because I'm afraid Noah didn't want it to sink. And after he'd had a really, really massive drink, God thought he had him over a barrel, but no, he set forth in his ark. It was a Cutty's ark. Expect some show tune style rhythm and things here. So, as I mentioned, Noah's Ark was a drunkard, and I've heard it here that he unfortunately didn't know how to steer. With all those animals running about, two of each type, and the dinosaurs had some clouds because they got left behind. Yeah, T-Rex. The one you named?
It was more or less classes of dinosaurs, like the Brontosaurus.
Oh, like
Yeah,
a
sauropods.
yeah, like a Diplodocus. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, we go. Yes. Running about on the top deck. Noah cries, "What the?"
Heck.
Because we're not having swearing today. Little ones, yeah. And so the thing steers off on a tangent, and it went far too north. Not so nice. Especially when they hit a mountain made of ice. So before the Titanic, the Berg takes the Ark. And the dinosaurs, no drowning, thought, well, that was a lark. We'll call it there. So you'll see there will be some suspicious rhymes, there will be some interesting things. Of course, the upshot of that, of course, means everybody drowns, everything happens. What happens next? Well, of course, not everybody suffered, did they? Because the fish survived, didn't they? And is there an example of fish evolving to that level of intelligence, to that level of sophistication? How many here like Star Wars? Yeah. Admiral Akbar, the planet of Mon Cal, yeah, or Cthulhu,
Mon
even
Cal.
if we're going to go there, yeah. It could happen. That's what we'd have been like. We'd all have paddle boards. We'd all be able to breathe underwater. Would have been all right, I think. Yeah. So we're going to move on, though. We're going to move on from the fun that is prehistory, and we get into ancient history. And in ancient history, we finally have the written word. We have the earliest empires. We have Persia, Babylon. We have the first epic, the world's first ever superhero. Do you know who the world's first ever superhero was?
Hercules?
Before Hercules. That's even before Hercules.
Perseus.
Before Perseus. Even before Perseus.
Moses?
Before Moses. Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh and Enkidu and Urukagina. A character so powerful, so massive, that even the gods became jealous and they sent Enkidu to take him out. The real problem they had was that, unlike Superman, children, tender ears, Gilgamesh had a sex drive. And all the men of all the towns petitioned the gods and they said, would you mind, can you just sort of take him down a peg or two? So they sent Enkidu to take him out. Enkidu is like a wild man of beast sort of thing. And yeah, it sort of went horribly, horribly wrong there as well. They became drinking buddies. Anyway, so we're moving on to the age of heroes. We have the gods, we have Perseus, we have Hercules, or Heracles. And at some point someone will make the joke about Heracles, Spectacles, wallet and watch. Yeah. So, would anyone like to explore this era? Would anyone like to explore something different about this period? We've got ancient Greeks, we've got Romans, Egyptians. Would anyone like to?
What about Alexander?
Alexander the Great? Yeah, we could do that here. Yeah. And what would you change about Alexander? How could things possibly be different there?
He kept going.
He kept going. Oh yes. Okay, yeah. Yeah. You'd thought he'd stop at Persia. You'd think he'd gone far enough. But Alexander was very great, and he was very tough. And little known about it, if you ever see his statues, he's often standing off this way there in his bronzen hues, because Alexander was allegedly deaf, at least in one ear. So when people were telling him to stop, he just couldn't hear. And past Persia, on he went further east. People said to him, you're overstretched, why are you in such a hurry? And he said, oh my good friends, I could murder a curry. But it would go and that'd be the first of the great empires. Alexander asked for theirself another kingdom, because that which I leave is too small. Can you remember what his dad's name was?
Alexander?
Philip of Macedon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there we go. You'd think it would be another Alexander, wouldn't you? Because they're not normally that imaginative. They're not, are they? No. So would anyone like to muck around in this era? before we move on to the next bit? We are rushing through time very quickly, but there is a lot of it. So, anything else in the ancient period?
I was thinking about Julius Caesar getting stabbed by Brutus.
Yep.
And maybe he's the one that had the affair with Cleopatra, not Antony.
Or that Brutus has the affair, or that Caesar has the affair.
Yeah, Caesar has the affair.
Caesar has the affair, not Antony.
Yeah.
Okay, because he tried it on, didn't he?
Well, I don't really know, but I was aware Caesar. There was stuff going on where it was slightly different.
Yeah.
But, I'd like to hear your expense on that.
She was the queen of the filter and capture, the world's first influencer, Cleopatra. Antony and Julius, they both wanted to see her. Caesar got in first because he was a geezer. She first rolled up in a carpet of twine, and he saw her and he thought, well, she looks fine. But she was killed by a snake in the grass, which was a shame because she had a lovely nose. There are children present, I'm not going to say arse. And so it rolled up that the love affair between Julius and Cleo, when it came to the Ides of March, the blades didn't come neo close. Beware the Ides of March, they said, but Brutus was at a loss because the leader was far too wonderful. He was far too good. But what was the cost? Because Julius actually does become king. Of all the things they'd feared with the Republic, that was the thing. Julius Caesar, the ruler of all, finally is there and becomes and stands tall. And what will we call this fantastic star? Because from Caesar we get the term Tsar. Sometimes I'll just sit and try, I'm going to do something clever. Doesn't have to be funny. Not always. But while we're on the subject of Romans, this one comes up quite a bit because in AD 54 we get the Roman invasion of Britain. And I do apologise in advance, a lot of these histories are going to be British sort of focused. That's my failing and I apologise for that in advance. However, something that does come up when we talk about Romans is what if Boudica had lived? What if she had survived? What if she had won? That's what we're imagining here. So do we all know who Boudica is?
Woo!
That's handy. Good. Do we get a cheer for Boudica? Woo! What if Boudica had won? I warn you, this is a grim story. The widowed queen of Prasutagus, a warrior maid of the Iceni, she drove the Romans out of Pridwain, of all Britain became queenie. Though sadly this wasn't quite so neat, because before the Romans there was another elite. The Druids, who controlled the written word. So of Boudica's strength little is heard. Those men in white robes claimed she was a distraction, and it was them in fact who led to Roman extraction. Sending the tin heads back to their homes, little was heard of Boudica versus Rome. And thus in power the Druids move on. They come out of their island home on Inis Mon. Do we know where Inis Mon is? Anyone? It's Anglesey. That was their last bastion, their little home. To prevent Boudica becoming all a pester, they left her entrenched in Colchester. Or Camalodunum, as it was called back then. That was the original capital of Britain. Camalodunum was her house arrest, queen in name at best, and thus Britain became controlled by a religion with a bloody name. Ooh. Yeah, feel free to ooh and ah in the right places, guys. So yeah, the Druids, yeah, imagine that, a religion, men with long beards, long robes, honour killings, human sacrifice, telling people what to think all the time. Can you imagine something like that? I don't do topical though, which is lucky. So that's where we're up to the Roman invasion of Britain, and that's where we find ourselves now. Really tricky, but we then come on to what we call the Dark Ages, or actually what we now call the early medieval period, because in this bit, not much is known about what happens here. We have Angles and Saxons and Jutes invading, we get the establishment of England, we get the Picts, the Cornish and the Welsh all sort of beginning to separate, perhaps not so much with the Welsh and Cornish, for whom I will have a deep sympathy always. Lots of stuff going on there. We get Vikings. Vikings are fun! Apparently, yes. Well, apparently so, yes. But we also get, we're not quite devoid of heroes at this stage, because we also get the legend of King Arthur as well, which one day will be another show in itself. It'll last about 3 hours with toilet breaks. Would anyone like to suggest a potential change to the Dark Ages? I thought you might.
What if Richard the Lionheart actually had a lion's heart?
Ah, right. Well, we're straying on a bit later into the later medieval period there, but we can do this. We can cover this. This is fine. If Richard the Lionheart had a lion's heart, imagine how much he would eat. Imagine how much he would fart. To be fair, he would probably die quite early on, because of biological conditions and things. He only spent 9 months in Britain the whole time he was king.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, spoke French, didn't speak English. Well, didn't speak what passed for English at the time, spoke French. Which is interesting because that brings us on to, you may have jumped ahead a little bit, but that's okay. Because, when was the last successful invasion of Britain?
1066?
Anyone care to hazard a guess?
1066?
You'd think that.
A battle of Culloden.
Nope. Nope. It is technically 1066, and that's where we're going.
Okay.
But there was also another invasion of Britain. I believe it was. I'm going to get picked up on this later on. I believe it was 1254 thereabouts. Henry II, where all of the barons and people around decided they didn't want him to be king anymore. So they petitioned the Dauphin of France and said, "Can you lend us an army?" So they did. They got them an army of mercenaries who came over to Britain, walked quite unimpeded all the way around. Henry II had a ring of steel, 5 castles all the way around London, and they came to Hertford, which is roughly where I'm from. And this French army of mercenaries took over Hertford for 2 months, and then the money ran out and they went home again. So sort of an invasion. They weren't beaten, but they didn't.
Successful.
Well, yeah. Can I come back to you on that? Yeah. So, what if Harold had won at Hastings? So we know a fair bit about the Battle of Hastings. We've seen the evidences, that is the Bayeux Tapestry and what we have there. But we also know there was another battle before the Battle of Hastings, wasn't there? One further north, where a bunch of Danes came over. It seems that Harold Hardrada had sunken his armada. So there was no battle up at Stamford Bridge, and the Saxons didn't end up fringed. That's a technical term. Bill didn't conquer at Hastings, and the Saxons take no time wasting. The Normans lost at no great cost, and the Saxons gave them a pasting. So the monarchy of this isle continued for all the while, with no new blood, which became thicker than mud, and inbreeding became the style. How unlike the royals. And the British breathed a sigh of relief. They'd managed to win by the skin of their teeth. And instead of barons and round castles that we call bailey and motte, we get square-towered churches, and the Saxons just maintain their plot, keeping things just as they were, but they really should have just embraced change. Because everything carried on as normal and they just didn't think it strange, where the Saxons, let's face it, were invaders too, and emboldened with false thoughts of strength and of security, but eventually they got caught. All this time looking south. But then the Welsh, they seized their chance, and then they seized the hour. Instead of the sons of King Harold, we get the sons of Owen Glendower. Do we have any Welsh people in at all? Anyway? No?
About a quarter Welsh.
Sorry?
About a quarter Welsh.
Oh, which quarter?
My mother's side, my grandfather was born in Mumbles.
Oh, right, so Swansea sort of area. Dych chi'n siarad Cymraeg? Nac I do. Welsh. I don't really speak Welsh, but I'm trying to learn at the same time. I'm trying to learn Welsh and Romanian at the same time. And I'm going to tell you now, Romanian is harder. by a long chalk. It's not just Latin, guys, okay? So lots of other things happen in this period. So we come on to the period of King John and King Richard, the Lionheart, and we have all these various places. Now King John, the brother of Richard the Lionheart, the one who succeeded, we all know why he's famous, don't we? The phony King of England.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Disney's
John
Robin Hood?
Lackland.
Well, do you remember Disney's Robin
Yeah,
Hood?
I know. John Lackland.
Sorry?
John Lackland.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
he didn't have any land.
Well, exactly, yeah. We sold it all off because he was so skint. However, do you remember the song The Phony King of England from Robin Hood?
Oh.
Yeah, should we do it now?
I don't remember how it went. I remember the.
Yeah, and I don't either, so let's not. But one of the most significant things that occurred in this time was at Runnymede.
Magna Carta.
Do we know what? Yeah. So, let's talk about Runnymede. But what if they couldn't find a pen that worked? I bought new ones before today's show. I wasn't going to get caught out like them. Cometh the hour and the time of need. They had no pen at Runnymede. The barons present, they raised a stink. It wasn't in buggerance, this lack of ink. And so smirked the irksome John, and there his infamy lived on. The dilution of the monarchy was a non-starter, because nobody signed.
The Magna Carta.
Hey, brilliant. And what a crock. We never got the speech by Tony Hancock. If you don't know the one I mean, Google it, it's hilarious. The knock-on effect was to last for years, with divine right being stuffed in our ears. The barons' egos are left red raw, and because of their anger, what comes earlier? An English Civil War. Exactly. Now, the English Civil War, so many reasons why it happened. It boils down largely to Parliament versus the King. The King's so entrenched with divine rights. We're in charge because God put us in charge. Therefore, if you question the King, you question God. Charles I, who before he was executed, was famously said, "I fail to see how so good a man could be so poor a king." Terrible, terrible. But this brings us to the period of the Tudors and the Stuarts. This is a fun era. Lots of stuff happens here. Henry VIII, a jolly rough tumble man. Elizabeth I, yeah. Oliver Cromwell. You're not so keen all of a sudden. That's probably the best that Oliver Cromwell's going to get. The one ruler we've ever had who was possibly described as. But yeah, so we have a lot happening in this period, and I'm hoping you have a lot of things that you would like to explore in this particular bit. Anything you could think of?
What if King Charles II didn't come
Oh,
back?
so what if
King Charles II just didn't come back?
just didn't come back? Well, let's explore that, yeah. Because at the time of the restoration of rulers, we were a bereft nation. The title of Lord Protector, and this is just insanity, they decided instead of replacing kings, they came up with another title that was hereditary. Cromwell's son was called Tumble Down Dick. That's for Richard. Dick is short for Richard. I'm so sorry. Gets that from you. And unfortunately, he was rather thick. Didn't have a clue what he was doing, and once again, trouble was brewing. To avoid another civil war, they said, "Oh, let's give these parliamentarians what for. Let's go and write to Charles in France, invite him back for a bit of a drink and a dance." But why the hell would he come back so in love with the drink and the dance? He was living it up in the south of France. So Charles II doesn't come back, a shame of which people sing, because in all that time, he was one of our most popular kings. Because do you know what he did that was so controversial? Nothing. Nothing. He was the world's first celebrity. Parliament gave him money. He went riding across the moors. He had lots of banquets. He spent it all on women. His famous last words, "Let not poor Nelly starve." Nell Gwynn, his favourite girlfriend. But that didn't happen, so we have another civil war. It all kicks off again, people fighting, there was no restraint. Tell me, what do you think would happen with that? Who could win? Would we have the Welsh back in?
No.
Or maybe the Scots?
Hey!
Because the Stuarts were Scots. The Stuart Scots. James I was originally James VI of Scotland. And so the Scots come south to tell us what to do. And they told us everything, but one thing they didn't say, okay, the new. Now, we are going to go to the hat now. Have another think about this period. It's a nice, fun one to do. Lots of things to think about. But we're going to go to the hat. So you all put in, on the pink one's the name of a historic person, on the yellow one's a historic event. So if you ever dry up and don't have ideas, and let's face it, this group, this audience has been fantastic. You've been amazing for ideas. Yesterday, we used a lot of these very quickly. But just to show you how it works, would you care to pick a pink one out, please? And would you care to pick a yellow one out? Oh, this is the deep dive. So who do we have on the yellow one?
Boston Tea Party.
The Boston Tea Party. And who is at the Boston Tea Party?
Anne Boleyn's brother.
Anne Boleyn's brother. Well, naturally, he left England. He didn't want to end up dead. It hadn't been too long since his sister lost her head. He went out west where he heard the land was best. And he thought, oh, that's where I should flee. And he arrives there in Boston, missing just one thing, the perfect cup of tea. So he goes over to the Americans and see them hale and hearty. And then imagine his face when he sees the nature of their party. The water around going strangely brown, as the sea around Boston did brood. Brood. We can do this, yeah? And then in his rage, his anger, it did stewed. What is this? What have you done? You're supposed to be the land of the free. The one thing I cannot get, a decent cup of tea. This will lead to war, I tell you. People won't be happy. I'm gonna come back. I think I've soiled my nappy. Anne Boleyn's brother led a revolution against a revolution, a counter-revolution, it's said. Do you know what revolutions look like? This is the French Revolution. Les enfants de la patrie, les deux trois, it's everything. Do you want to see a counter-revolution? It stops me being dizzy. We'll call that there. We'll call that there. Yes. I know, that wasn't really a revolution, that was a rotation. It's a history show, not a science show, I'm sorry. Other things that happened. Now, Elizabeth I, she was fun. Didn't have children, didn't give us any heirs, known as the Virgin Queen, but she nearly did get married. She nearly get married to Henri d'Anjou, the Dauphin of France, the son of the King of France. Life would have been so different, and maybe not such a slog, if the Virgin Queen had settled down and married her little frog. That was actually her nickname for him, we're not being racist, okay? It upset most of her courts, and she just called them racist. The problem wasn't that he was French, but that he was papist. Church king. We seeing the cycles? But he was just a young garçon and he still sought to woo her, because we've all seen Blackadder 2, we know she was an absolute cougar. And because the Brits, they love a royal, and we haven't invented regicide, everyone had an excuse to party and got smashed on French red wine. So we never had the Stuarts because the Tudors did persist, and on all of our partying Britons, we all got royally drunk. And bizarrely it all worked out okay, because the English never show their teeth. And this particular reality, we don't have a civil war, and the sabres stay in their sheath. And though Britain goes on to become a part of Great France, you will have nothing more to fear. Because you might be born within the sound of bow bells, but you can still be a musketeer. Yeah, there's a little bit of pro-French stuff in here as pro-Welsh as well, but the thing is, history is, as we know, famously written by the victors. And so in our alternative histories, we do have to turn things around. And France was the next sort of great power there at the time, which does, how are we doing for time? It sort of moves us on sort of quite neatly. And now we come on to sort of a later patch. Unless anyone would like to shout anything out about Tudors and Stuarts before we move on.
What if the gunpowder plot works?
What if the gunpowder plot had worked?
Plot.
Yeah.
Guy Fawkes.
No, sorry, just checking the hearing, I'm afraid, yes, yeah. Remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason and plot. And this time everything had worked because the plotters weren't a bunch of clots. Because we know that one of them, he gave his mate a warning and he said, "Oi, look out!" And somebody then in Parliament, they begin to scout about. Doesn't happen this time round. The plotters were just a bunch of jerks. Britain sees its first display of November fireworks. It destroys Parliament, it destroys the king, but and there's the rub. We find ourselves in another bit of strife. Everyone, they rise up from their pubs because we see our first act of terrorism. Well, the first one that worked anyway. And then everybody remembers this day. They kill James I, our probably last papist, well in this case, papist king. We get our Protestants in charge. Where do we think this leads? Most of the people thought it was terrible and it had gone to hell. But up steps a noble man, the father of Oliver Cromwell. We get ourselves a republic, and it wasn't quite so great, and nobody would ever remember this premature protectorate. So we do move on, and we're coming up to sort of the later sort of, we have Regency, and we're coming on to the Victorians in this particular area. We get the births of empire at this stage. We get, great powers rising up, taking over lots of aggravation and tears and stuff throughout Europe. And we get a certain little fella called Napoleon Bonaparte. Can I get an ooh? Ooh. Or maybe ooh. Ooh. Well, it depends how you feel. I mean, well, let's do a bit of it. Napoleon Bonaparte, ooh? Ooh. Napoleon Bonaparte, ooh. Ooh. Pro Bonaparte. Because people will ask, what if Bonaparte had won at the Battle of Waterloo? Now, this was quite massive, lots of different sides fighting, and the whole thing really, really hung on a massive thread. It wasn't all down to Sean Bean. Cometh the man, cometh the hour, what makes France a superpower? The Prussians were late, a big mistake, waving their banner all over the place, singing.
We will.
No. Waterloo, how does it feel now you've got... Oh.
Waving their banner all over their place.
But it's about Waterloo. Oh. I'm so sorry. We'll cover the Swedes later. Anyway, French became a lingua franca. Wellington considered a massive waste of space. England falls with no victory, and Nelson is left all at sea. Kings and queens become a thing of the past. Republics are now built to last. With France ultimately leading the world. Furthermore, no England, no Germany, no world wars. Everything under France became pretty ace. No wonder they were the first into space. Now, I'm not saying that if the French were in charge, everything would be fantastic, but I'm willing to give them a go. That's all. You know. Now, just for necessity, this is something we have to cover, is the fact that that was if Napoleon had won at Waterloo, like the ABBA song.
We will rock you.
Yeah, fair play. This show could do with a sing-along section, I think, you know. But what if Napoleon had won at Trafalgar? Now this one, I tell you now, would have had a direct effect on everybody in this room.
Monopoly board.
A big one?
The Monopoly board.
More than that. I can tell you now, none of you would be here if this had gone differently. And I mean this quite specifically about small effects and knock-on changes, how little things can happen. If the victory sank at Trafalgar, the poet would disappear from view, because without Midshipman Westphal, I'd be one ancestor too few. Yeah. Midshipman Westphal, from whom I am a direct descendant, my paternal grandmother's great, so many great-grandfathers, was Midshipman Westphal on the Victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. And he was lying next to Nelson when Nelson died. Because within our family for decades, we had a little button from his coat on which a bit of Nelson's hair caught and clotted with a bit of blood. And it stayed in our family until 1922, where unfortunately it was lost in a house fire in Mile End Road in London. But we still have the newspaper clippings about how he was eventually made Admiral. And that is, from his genes I doth spring, you know? So imagine if Napoleon won Trafalgar, if the Victory had sunk, he had died, I wouldn't be here now, you wouldn't be here now, or if you were, you'd probably be here listening to some really crap comedian going on, trying to make you funny and make you laugh. Yeah, thanks for that. So thank you for coming, but more importantly, thank you to Nelson, I think. So we have a little bit of a strange period there, and we find ourselves coming up to the 20th century. 20th century is quite grim. Lots of stuff happens there. Should we have something from the hat first? Now normally with people shouting things out, it means we don't use much from the hat. Everything from the hat will be used. Everything that's still left in the hat at the end of the show is going to be used to make one long mega epic poem, okay? Right, would you care to pick a colour from the hat? Would you care to pick a pink one from the hat? Okay, so who do we have on the pink one?
Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks. And what's she up to today?
Fire of London.
Thanks. Yeah. With everything you're right. I haven't said anything funny yet. With everything being separate and things being black and white, the whole world was going to ruin and giving great fright. Because who would have thought Rosa Parks' bus took her to London in the 17th century? Because there was such a fuss, such a kick-off, she couldn't get us off at her stop. She found herself at Pudding Lane, and then she had a massive strop. She said, I'm trying to do good here, change things for the best. You know, And here's me, just with some matchsticks. What on earth could I possibly do to kick up a fuss in 1666? So she sets fire to a bakery. Yes, I'll burn your bread. All you horrible white people, you could all end up dead. And we know this is true. We have it for keeps. She helped write it down in the diary of
Keeps.
Peeps.
Yeah.
Peeps.
Yeah, Daniel Peeps.
Yeah.
It could have been Keats, it would have rhymed at least. So there we go. We are going to have a big mash-up then, perhaps towards the end. Let's just check on the time once more. Yeah. Tempest is fugiting, because it does this, unfortunately. So we come towards, we're in the 20th century, we have to deal with this particular issue. We have to deal with World War II. We have two poems about alternative World War IIs. We have a grim one. We have a funny one. You're going to get them both. Which would you like first?
The grim one.
Grim one.
The grim one, good, because ending the show on the other way round it's nasty. So what if Germany had won World War II? I promise you, this one's not funny. But we'll try and get around to something cheerful afterwards. If Germany had won World War II, there'd be a lot less freedom for me and for you. There would, of course, be mass genocide for the person of colour and for the Jew. Did America capitulate, or did they not get stuck in? In this version, Pearl Harbor doesn't happen. There's no excuse to muck in. The truth is perhaps even worse, because America still chooses a side. So when it comes to stopping fascism, we couldn't turn the tide. The Nazis in America, they sign a peace accord, and global fascism becomes the world's reward. Now imagine the US of A, not like it is today. Not like it is today. Just try if you can. Where minorities are persecuted at whim, where the police can murder with excuses slim. Gay and trans are criminalised, while religious schools still peddle lies. The White House is not just a name, a place for anyone not BAME. Now, if you can, imagine that. And in Europe, it's much the same. When there's times of trouble, there's minorities to blame. And this is how Nazi Britain works. Lions led by a bunch of jerks. I did say it wasn't cheerful, didn't I? Didn't I? Yeah. But hopefully we're all learning. Everything comes in cycles. It's going to get better. Kind of has to, really, doesn't it? So let's end with something cheerful, if we can. If we can. What if Hitler had enacted Operation Sea Lion? Now, Operation Sea Lion was the Nazi invasion of Britain, which was supposed to happen after they'd beaten the RAF. So, if the Battle of Britain had finished with the RAF being wiped out, the Nazis would invade. It was tricky. But bizarrely, an Allied bomber dropped a load of bombs over Germany, quite accidentally discharged its payload, which then prompted Hitler to change tactics and began the Blitz. It was Goering, I think, for the Luftwaffe, wasn't it? Yeah, so they changed tactics and they switched to the Blitz instead, which was lucky because the RAF were actually at their wits' end at the time, and by changing tactics, it actually gave them time to rebuild, regroup. If they just carried on doing what they were doing, it would have been so different. Anyway, Operation Sea Lion. The Nazis invade Britain from across the sea. There would have been a lot more dying if Hitler enacted Operation Sea Lion. Thank you. But look, the invasion of Britain is underway, focusing on Portsmouth and around Medway. But we knew well what to do, but not Hitler, not he. They found themselves scuppered by Warmington on Sea. They won't like it up on the corporal cried as the Germans charged across the sand, where many butchered comrades lied and soaking this green and pleasant land. At the south coast, the Home Guard, they gave them all a hammering because they were led by the brave, the noble, the one and only Captain
Memory.
Hey, fantastic, thank you. And scene. So thank you very much. That is roughly where we are towards the end of the show. So I'm going to ask you to pass the hat round now. and take a piece of paper each. I'm going to do the mega epic poem. While we're doing that, I need to give the Free Fringe speech, I'm afraid. The PBH Free Fringe is a charity that basically provides young, poor performers like me with a chance to perform. They provide the venues, they provide all the equipment, they give us a chance to come and perform here where, to be quite frank, we couldn't afford to otherwise. It's a really handy thing that they do. Now, it is a free show. You really don't have to give any money at all, not at all. But if you would like to do so, I can meet you outside afterwards. And if you want to throw some money in the hat or give something through the card reader, that's more than welcome. I think. What I can also say is anyone who does, right, anyone who's been here, because you've been a fantastic audience, can go away with a copy of the book that accompanies the show. Impro presents What If History. So thank you very much. You've all been fantastic. It's been really nice to have such a wonderful enthusiasm. Everybody's been smiling. No one's fallen asleep. It's been brilliant. I don't know about you, but I've really enjoyed it, and that's all that really counts. So we're going to do the mega epic poem now. The mega epic poem. When I point to you, tell me what's on your piece of paper. We'll maybe start with you. We'll go around and we'll finish up over here. Okay, so who starts off the adventure?
Boudica.
Boudica, and Boudica's friend today is?
Rasputin.
Okay. Rah, rah, Rasputin, what you gonna do? Because Boudica's sussed it, and she is coming for you. And they met together, this battle of wits, and they met at
The Eiffel Tower being built.
the Eiffel Tower being built, because that's approximately halfway between Norfolk and Russia. And no, they really don't want to rush you. They're fighting all the way up the scaffolding near the top, and suddenly they had to stop because what occurred?
Sinking of the Titanic.
The sinking of the Titanic, about which they were both concerned. And if there's anything now of anything we've learned, is it's all about the headlines. They stop and read the paper. What are you, a Russian accent or a Norfolk accent? I see that there is the Titanic sunk. It's a lot like West Country, I'm being lazy. And then who'd have thunk? They've sunk the unsinkable. Rasputin and Boudica, they joined together. Let's see what we can do. And let's bring in something else, but unfortunately we're scuppered by
The Battle of Bannockburn.
the Battle of Bannockburn. On their way north, forging through the ferns, they struck upon the Battle of Bannockburn. This is nothing to do with us, but all these people fighting. We should really do something there. Oh look, it's Liam Neeson under lighting. And of course we saw
William Shakespeare.
William Shakespeare. Christ. Liam Neeson and the words of Shakespeare. We Hugh, we happy Hugh, we're band of brothers. If only I had with me today someone who could help me stop the fight, I'll call upon my friend
Florence Nightingale.
Florence Nightingale, the Lady of the Light Lamp. She was patching up the soldiers with lots of bandages and tape. The only problem was that no one could escape. Everybody, even the uninjured, they had their legs in plaster. Well, let's see where it goes. Let's see if we cannot waster this opportunity to bring in
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist, wading through the water. Before anybody died, he said, well, do you think I ought to? I'll administer the sacrament of the sick, and you can eat some bread unleavened. That way, everybody here, you all get to go to heaven, which would have been great if things hadn't got worse because of
The fall of the Berlin Wall.
the fall of the Berlin Wall. What a pardon me for being terse. And you may all laugh, and you young man may scoff, but none of this would have happened were it not for David Hasselhoff, who with his lovely card called Kit, he got Shakespeare, Rasputin, Boudica, and probably Liam Neeson back down there to show them what's best by bringing together the two sides and peace and harmony, east and west. A wonderful thing, and it's all quite so swell. And then, of course, some form of hell. What happens next?
The Reformation.
Well, the Reformation occurs. It's a great excuse for art. We get some lovely plays, comedies, if you could call it that. And luckily, everything turns out, it all becomes rather swell. They've had a lovely time, and I hope you have as well. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to bring in my favourite Welsh word at the end here. Tell me if you've ever heard the word hereth. You've heard it? It's that wonderful word that refers to a form of nostalgia, a time that was fantastic and golden and lovely. Everybody harks back to it as to a great time that may or may not really have been. I want you to think of the last hour as being like that. Think well of me as you go on your way, and I'll meet you at the back. If you would care to donate, I have books for you and money, perhaps, in the hat. Thank you.